All right, happy Monday. Good afternoon. It's MLK Day, or the celebration of. This is Marcus Cage coming to you with the 10 tips, 10 days for $10. Just because it's an off day for most, that's not meaning it's an off day for us. So as we continue to pioneer through, I want to solicit everybody to pose any questions or comments that you may have concerning the tips that have been shared thus far. So let's go into our tips today. We'll go into a brief review of the things that we've already touched upon up until this point. And today is a special day because this is day 8 of the 10 tips, 10 days for $10. And with that being said, we're going to combine tip 7 and tip 8. And in between tip 7 and tip 8, I'm going to give us maybe a 5-minute intermission to kind of soak up all the information. I'm still going to keep the recording going, but I'm going to give us enough time to take some breathers in so we can take a brief break, come back, go on to the next tip, and then we'll be done for the day. So be looking out. This tip should start at 8 o'clock today, January 19th. We're going to go into the tip 7. We're going to review, I believe, tip 5 and tip 6, and then we'll take a break and then finish out tip 8. So all will be 10 minutes. So right now we are at 42 seconds going up on the minute. All right. Tip number 5, as a review, know the product and the service your company offers inside and out. You cannot sell a product or service that you know nothing about. In order to sell a product or service, you must know the product or service intimately. So we need to know about the product. We need to be partakers of the product and service. If we desire to sell it to people, then it should have been proven successful in our lives. Mentoring was tip 6. Mentoring. Who is mentoring you? And I believe I asked the question, who and what is mentoring you? You have peers that we're connected to, whether we're 16, 17, or 32. We have people that have different mentalities that are connected to us, and subconsciously or consciously they're mentoring us, and they're moving us. The thoughts, if we entertain on those thoughts, are moving us into a direction that we may desire to go into, or a direction that we may not desire to go into. You must actively seek wisdom from someone who has been there and is going to the place that you desire to go. Knowledge will only take us so far, but wisdom from a mentor within your company that understands where you're trying to go will take you to a place of preeminence. So I don't necessarily connect to people that have knowledge. My connection is to people that have wisdom. There's something that our apostle Stephen Moffat taught us, which was upreach, outreach, and downreach. And your outreach should be those who have greater wisdom than you, and you should be pulling from them. Your outreach is more people that are on the same playing field in similar areas of life that you can talk to as peers. And your downreach is the people that you mentor, the people that you teach and build up to get to that level in their life so they can advance forward in whatever God would have them to do. New tip. Tip 7. Perfect the art of cross-training. It is easy. It's so easy. And I've been in this situation. I've witnessed it several times. It's easy to take others' jobs for granted when we don't understand how our jobs affect the whole. We must take the initiative and see how each piece fits within the puzzle of our entire company or our entire community. Job shadow other positions within your organization. Once you gain understanding, your decision making will dramatically improve. And if the decision making that we have dramatically improved, then we'll be promoted. First, you get promoted in responsibility, then you get promoted in the actual physical manifestation, moving from one job to another. It has helped me tremendously understanding the different departments and how they work together for the benefit of the whole. But I had to take initiative and stay after and sit and observe how different processes are ran, how things are done in different departments, and it gave me a better understanding of how the decisions that I'm making in my specific department affect the whole. So even when comments are made, because I'm in a training facility with young people, they like to come and ask questions. And when they ask questions, these questions are what I call invading questions. An invading question to me is a question that you ask me when another person that's qualified in another specific area or department should be answering. So I make sure that I stay within my confines and my guidelines and my borders, and I won't step or cross over into another person's area of expertise or the department or some type of specific processes that they oversee. But some people just want information. Some people just want to know. They want that instant gratification of knowing what they want to know now, which is not beneficial to them, because one thing that it does is that it draws people to one specific person instead of spreading and evenly dispersing the responsibility amongst the entire team. But I had to learn, and I had to go and ask, how does this process work in your department? How is what you do affecting what I do, and how is what we do together affecting the whole? How can we streamline our processes so we can both get the want and the need that we need to fulfill in our specific departments, so we can do better for the whole? So we have 6 minutes left, and this is one key that I wanted to share with us, is that each piece of a puzzle is different and diverse. But when all the pieces come together, you can see the entire picture. And now when we look at this specific photo, we see that there are pieces of the puzzle that are together, and there's one piece of the puzzle that's isolated, which doesn't allow the whole picture to be seen. We'll see it in part if we're not all together. So how does that fit into cross training? How does that fit into the jobs 10 tips, 10 days for $10? It fits like this, that even the tips that we've shared up until this point were pieces of the entire puzzle that allow us to put things together to advance in our job setting and our careers. But we had to have each piece of the puzzle. Each piece of the puzzle was different and diverse. It was different expressions and different tips that were given. But now the pieces are all coming together, and now we have 2 days left of tips to give, and now we'll bring all those pieces together. And then when I release the wealth manifestation system to you, you will be able to take all the pieces of the puzzle and put them together, and now you have a system to advance you forward in your career. So let's ask another question. How does that cross training fit in relation to this picture? So each department is a piece. Let's visualize each department is a piece. And each department is a piece, but each department is also diverse. But in order for us to fit together, I have to know what your overall purpose, mission, and vision for your particular department is. Sometimes when we're in a specific organization, and it does not matter where we are, that sometimes we find ourselves getting selfish, and we think about I, me, instead of we. And in some instances, we do have to be selfish to a certain degree, but we always have to have others in our minds, and considering what do they have to accomplish. How is the decision that I'm getting ready to make, how does it fit into the overall scheme or purpose or plot or plan of the entire organization? That allows us to come together to run fluently, to let the processes complement each other instead of compete against one another. So that is a tip that I would like to release to you. So we have, and this tip was 8 minutes and 15 seconds. So I'm going to ask you in a bit to please stand by, but I am going to summarize what we discussed. And we discussed the art of cross training. The art of cross training consists of taking the initiative, going into another department, and asking them what they do. Not only what they do, but what do you do, and how does it fit into my processes, and what can I do in my processes to complement what you're trying to accomplish? See, sometimes those questions aren't asked because those questions just aren't thought of, but we'll consistently have problems with our processes, and we'll consistently have problems because somebody else in another department is doing something and is negatively affecting what I'm attempting to do in my department. But we have to open up the lines of communication and initiate the process, not necessarily be reactive to it, but initiate that process so we can get a better understanding of how each piece, each department comes together to fit in the overall scheme of things. So that's going to take us getting outside of our comfort zone and not remaining in that box that we built, going out, doing different job shadowings, maybe even taking it up to another notch. Maybe I even need to job shadow that particular job for an entire day and see what type of paperwork and what type of processes and what type of hills and valleys that the person experiences through their processes. So that makes us more sensitive to each other's needs. So with 9 minutes and 54 seconds going to 10 minutes, I'm going to give us a 5-minute break. Then we're going to go back into tip, and that will be tip number 8. So I will see you in a bit.
Baseball on the run. Took it all the way in. No call, and it'll be good basketball. That was surprising. He did stand his ground, but he reached down, and anytime those arms come forward, I usually call. That's 10 turnovers now for Detroit. 13 points scored by the Hawks off those turnovers. J.J. Augustine tried the old okey doke on the timeout. He faked like he was going to call it. Got shut out going to the hoop. Time out on the floor. The Hawks with a 5-point lead when we come back to Atlanta.
State Farm National Bureau of Assist agent Cliff Paul is a visionary assister, just like his twin brother, Chris Paul. Cliff's signature no ask assist is always a customer pleaser.
Don't worry, Greg. I'm here to help with the window. He's here to help with the test.
No matter where the assist is needed, it always ends up in the right place. The best assist is one you never see coming.
Lucy is the first human being to unlock more than 10% of her brain. What happens when she reaches 100%? I have no idea. Lucy, only on digital HD now on Blu-ray and DVD Tuesday. A man pioneers a way to see the unseen. Will you?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go into this tip 8. Stop my timer. Reset. Tip 8. Tip 8. Now, we talked about cross-training and making sure that we take the initiative to learn more about different departments. And when we do that, it opens us up. And it also opens us up to different relationships in different departments. So, excuse me, I was doing some exercises in the meantime. But anyhow, it also opens us up to different opportunities of relationship and connecting with one another. And that goes back to us connecting to each other and having influence with one another. Being able to connect and understand how this person's day is going and how are things for them and how the attitudes and the different behaviors that we have to endure, customers, co-workers, internal customers, external customers, internal clients, external clients, the people that we serve within the organization and outside the organization, we get an understanding better of that person and what they have to endure, which allows us to service each other better. So moving forward, somebody want to read that for us? Oh, he's not in the classroom. Read along with me, even though I can't hear you. Tip number 8, never leave room for assumption. For in assumption lies confusion. Never leave, that is key. There is no room for assumption in our house, which is our life. Whenever and whatever we are communicating to a team member, there should always be an outcome. If I could pause for 1 second on this. There was a meeting that I was in recently, and it was a lot of great ideas being shared. There was nobody was being critical, nobody was being judgmental of each other's ideas. However, at the end of the meeting, there was no outcome. We can't leave an outcome to be in an assumed form. And this is what I mean. we're in a meeting, we're just sharing ideas, brainstorming, you and I and maybe 3 or 4 other people, and we get up from that meeting just having shared ideas. Nobody stepped up to the plate and said, okay, the end result is, the outcome is. See, when we're meeting with each other, whether it's in one-on-one conversation or in a group meeting, there has to be some type of outcome that's established, that's not an assumption. It has to be clearly articulated that this is the outcome that we look and desire to experience based upon the conversation that we just had. So in the conversation that I was having, or in the conversation that I was involved in with the group of people, I was very assertive and I asked them, what's the outcome? What is the outcome? The outcome is A, B, C, and D. When is this outcome going to come to, or when this outcome is going to transpire? See, we have to be specific. Without specifics, we won't advance forward. Everything in the Word of God was specific. Specific. He spoke specific words. He gave specific stories with outcomes, in betweens, and details. The beginning, the between, and the end. Specific. We have to be specific in the things that we do. Not saying that we have to be rigid. I'm saying specific. We have to have flexibility, but we shouldn't leave things up for assumption. So follow through with the process to the very end. Never, never leave a task or problem unsolved, hoping that someone else will pick up where you have made left off. This is a master key. If a person or we or you desires to be promoted, to advance forward in any area of life, whether it be relationships with your friends, your loved ones, husband, wife, girlfriend, whoever that you partner with, and you desire to advance forward as a person, internally and externally, we have to follow through each process to the very end. I can't assume that this person is doing this. That person is probably assuming that I'm doing the same thing that I'm assuming that they may be doing. It has happened to me before, where things are left for assumption, or things are left up room for assumption, and the thing was not being done. Because as a manager, I wasn't doing my spot checks or my audits, and I just assumed just because this person had a good track record and was consistent, to my understanding, if the thing wasn't being done. Now I know that as a manager, which we all are in some form or fashion, there has to be some type of checks and balances. There has to be an accountability there. We can't assume that a person is doing something just because it's part of a job description. They may have yet to learn how to prioritize what's more important versus what's least important. And as we are as managers, parents, friends, family members, we have to hold each other accountable and make sure that each person is on the same page and that we're prioritizing things of greater importance and in contrast to things that are lesser of importance. So it doesn't take place without communication, and it does not take place without accountability. So the last key for these trainings is, we have 5 minutes left, well, 4 minutes left exactly. An assumption can suddenly transform into the truth if it is not investigated. This is the key, because assumptions transform into the truth because I've just accepted it. For example, if myself or a colleague, or myself or you, we were having a discussion and you brought to me and you said, you know what, Mr. Cage Marcus, would you make sure that you clean out this room? Make sure that you organize these files for me. And I said, okay, yes, I will. I'll assume. Or not I'll assume, but I will. I'll do that for you because you're my manager and you give me a task to do. But if there's no specifics, if there's no checks and balances, then in your mind, you've assumed that I did it and I've assumed that responsibility. But when you come and check a week later without any spots or checks and balances, it's not done, and that breeds offense, and people get very, very offended and very angry when something that is investigated, that has not been investigated, an assumption, it becomes a truth. And it's difficult to move away from something that a person believes to be the truth. Another case in point, we have a conversation with someone and someone says, well, Miss Louise, Miss Henderson said this. She said A, B, and C from one person to another. Now, what Miss Henderson said was only A and B, but because the person that heard it said it was A, B, and C, they said it to someone else. That person made an assumption based off what the other individual said concerning Miss Henderson. So what we're saying to bring clarity is that Miss Henderson makes a comment. She says A, B, C, and D. The person that hears it says, okay, I heard A, B, and they give that to someone else. Now the third party says, well, Miss Henderson said A and B, but she said everything in totality or completely. But now that person, the third party, is holding what was said to them, shared from another person that had a conversation with her, as the truth. And that was an assumption. Well, I assume that Miss Henderson said that because that's what you share with me. That's all we can do is assume. But the third party has to make sure that they investigate what's been said. Miss Henderson said A and B. That don't sound like her. You have to ask probing and provoking questions to get to the root of the matter, because we never know. Maybe the person misheard it. Maybe the person has a problem, Miss Henderson. Who knows? So, summary. Making sure, tip 7 and tip 8, making sure that we cross-train, making sure that we take initiative to learn about other people's departments and how what they do affects us, and how what we do and they do combined affects the overall, the whole, or the overall mission and the vision of the organization. Tip number 8 is assumptions. We can't leave no room for assumptions. Just because you believe that it's being done doesn't necessarily mean it's being done. We have to establish clear, basic specifics on whose responsibility this is, when is it going to be done, and how is it going to be done. And one of the additional bonuses was that when people come and bring things to us, we can't make that assumption. We have to ask probing and provoking questions to get to the root of the matter. We don't want to leave any room for assumptions, because assumptions can breed offense, and when the offense comes, it's a wedge that moves us away from each other, and it results in division. We need to be united as one, with one mission, one vision, one purpose, in order to accomplish the mission and vision of the organizations, and also to step into our purpose and destiny so we can advance into our jobs and our careers. So this is Mr. Marcus Cage signing off. I appreciate you lending me your ear. Like I said before, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment box. We have exactly 10 minutes. We reached the point. Let's give applause for those people that have engaged and been involved in this process. So we have 2 more days. With the last day, I'm going to release, like I said before, a system of wealth manifestation for you that will take you physically out of your workplace and allow you to still produce value and to still receive revenue for your efforts, your gifts, your talents, and your treasures. Talk with you soon.